Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hawaiian Sheared Projects. In today's video, we're going to be working on episode number 2 of the pocket knife build. We're going to be working on the handle a little bit more, cleaning everything up, getting it all to match nice and even, as well as drilling some holes where I'm going to place the rivets later on. So if you want to see how I did that, stick around. So here's a quick little preview of what I'm hoping this pocket knife will turn out like. But for in the meantime, while we're still working on it, let's get that forge lit. And here's some attractive slow motion video for you guys of that fire getting started. Look at that, ain't that just beautiful? Now, once we get the fire nice and hot, I did figure that it'd probably be a good idea for me to go ahead and anneal the metal. So I went ahead and threw all my pieces into the fire, let it get to red hot, and then pulled it out, kind of let it sit to the side for a little while, cool down, threw it back in, heated it up again. Did that like 3 or 4 times to get it annealed. Because I did notice beforehand that while grinding and attempting to drill or file, this metal was very hard for just being a basic saw blade that I just cut out into the pieces that I need. So it was a pretty good idea for me to anneal it, soften that metal up again to make it more workable. Now I'm just going to take all the pieces and I'm defining, cleaning up all my pieces with the paper still on them. That way I got a good guide as to where I should stop with my sanding. And we're just going to kind of knock off all them sharp edges at the moment, because while I'm working, I prefer not to cut myself. Now I did realize that these welding magnets that give you your angles work very well to attach the metal to whatever the pieces that you're working on, and to help you flatten it out and keep everything nice and smooth while you're doing your sanding, as well as it gives you a good grip. That way you're not destroying your fingers on sanding belts. So if you're able to, go ahead and pick up one of these welding magnets. They're fantastic. I'll go ahead and leave a link to one in the description below. I actually really learned to love it in this situation. But now here we are after the annealing part of the process. I'm going to go back through with my sander. I'm going to knock off all that rough scale, polish everything back up, continue with the fine tuning of my shape. But for right now, I do have a little bit of an announcement and also a big old thank you to you guys. We have finally passed 40 subscribers. Thank you so much. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate it. I'm really happy that you're enjoying the content. As always, if you have a suggestion on a better way of doing something, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I'll give it a shot at some point. If you have a suggestion as a project you'd like to see done, go ahead and leave that down there in the comments. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this so far. I'd really appreciate it, and you guys are fantastic. I would like to, at some point, I'm thinking maybe around 50 subscribers. Once we pass that mark, I'd like to do a bit of a giveaway with one of my projects that I've been doing. So if you guys are interested in something like that, let me know down below, and share this video, share my channel with your friends and family. I want to get as many people into blacksmithing as I possibly can. It's an awesome hobby, and I want to get more people into it. Alright, so now that everything's all cleaned up and good to go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my template here, release the blade, and I'm going to set it on top of the pieces that I have cut out myself. I'm going to take my center punch. I'm just going to go ahead and try and punch in along the same holes that are in my template. Unfortunately, my center punch is a little bit too big to go through these smaller holes, so we're going to try to get a little bit creative with that. But I did at least get the main hole that's going to hold the blade, the rivet for the blade. So that worked out pretty well. So what I've decided to do is I've decided to line up the blade hole with my first center punch mark. And I'm just going to go ahead and outline the blade from where I kind of want it to sit. And that's going to be my minimum distance in that I'm able to put my holes for my rivets. That way the blade can close all the way and not be a hazard, as well as doesn't go too far to where the entire body of the pocket knife is going to be fragile. Gives me just enough room, and then I'm going to go through, line up the holes, and mark them again with my center punch. This process actually turned out to work quite well. I was very impressed with how it turned out. Now that I got my holes, my center punch holes all marked, I'm going to go ahead to my drill press. We're just going to drill them out. I did start off with a 1/8 drill bit, and I stepped it up from there to roughly the size of rivet stock that I'm going to be using. And so I'm not exactly too sure the exact size. I just know that it does fit quite snugly. If I figure that out, I will let you guys know in the description down below. Now I just need to duplicate what I did on this one piece on the other side as accurately as possible. So I went ahead and got a lot of soot on top of the other piece because I don't have any of that blue marking dye. I'm just going to take my drill bit, mark those little holes that I have cut out into that soot and see what that leaves me with. It did okay. There's a couple spots that messed up a little bit, but not too terrible. So actually, I'm just going to grip them with the vice grip together, lined up to where I want it to be. Put a little bolster block underneath there to make sure I can get my vice grips in, and just go ahead and drill that first hole. And we're going to just continue on as much as I can possibly. So unfortunately, having the vice grips here in my drill press was a bit of a pain in the butt, so I took it over to the vise to actually mark the holes much easier. And all I did was use my drill to just kind of like make the mark deeper, almost as if I was using a center punch. And that turned out to work just fine. So there you have it. Both pieces have holes in them. And I'm going to stack them on top of each other. And using tie wire, I'm going to route it through the smaller holes, holding them both together as tightly as I possibly can to make sure there isn't any movement, while I try and make them both uniform and even with each other as much as possible here on my sander. This is going to make it to where both sides of the handle, once they are actually put together with the rivets and in place, will line up as perfect as I can possibly do it, and it won't be uncomfortable in the hand or look ugly and uneven. And for the final little touches, kind of cleaning everything up, I'm going to go ahead and use a file for it. It does take a little bit longer, but as long as you've annealed it, it's not too terrible. It does kind of go slow, but it's very much worth it to make sure you get an even, clean finished product. And with that, it's going to wrap up what we're going to be working on today. There's what I'm finished with at the moment. So, like always, stay classy, party on.